Chris Mannix for the crossover alongside Rowan Ned Carney and Michael Shapiro. Guys, the trade deadline is behind us, and a lot of teams feeling pretty good about themselves after Thursday's trade deadline. Rowan, who is the biggest winner in your mind?
All right, this might be cheating a little bit because this team kind of made its big trade a couple of days before the trade deadline. But I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks, who acquired PJ Tucker from the Houston Rockets before the deadline passed. I like the Bucks here for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think Tucker's going to help them a lot. He's exactly the kind of guy I think they've been lacking in a playoff series. I think he's going to help them go small with Giannis at the 5 and kind of unlock some new defensive potential for them. So I really like Tucker there. I think he makes a lot of sense for a team like Milwaukee. But beyond that, I don't think any of the Bucks' main competitors, be it the Sixers, the Nets, whoever else you think might belong in that category, nobody else in the conference, I think, made that big move that threatens Milwaukee. I know a lot of people are kind of down on the Bucks after a couple straight years of disappointing playoff defeats. At the same time, they've been playing great this year. They still have a great offense. Giannis is still playing at an MVP caliber level. So I think the Bucks had a sneaky good deadline, picked up someone really valuable, and don't really have to worry too much about what any of their competitors did.
I'll look over to the Western Conference here. I think the Nuggets acquisition of Aaron Gordon is going to be a pretty helpful piece here as they kind of eye the finals. I think with Gordon, something that's really effective for them is he can make plays off the bounce. He's an underrated passer. He's not really just an above the rim threat. Defensively, he's going to allow them to switch a lot more than they previously have, which I think is valuable. Now, is Gordon necessarily going to be the piece to put them over the top in the Western Conference? I think the jury's still out on that, but he had a nice night on Sunday. He seems to be a really seamless fit next to Nikola Jokic in the front court. I think Gordon is going to be a pretty valuable addition. I think it was one of the bigger deals of the deadline. I think for Denver, it was certainly a worthwhile move as they look to kind of reach the next level here in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Boston. And Danny Ainge is taking a lot of heat for not being able to pull the trigger and get a big deal done. Now, maybe he deserves some heat for not being able to get Harrison Barnes and lowballing the Sacramento Kings on those offers. But I don't think he deserves heat for the inability to get Aaron Gordon, because I don't believe the Nuggets were going to be outbid here. I think the Nuggets realized that they weren't good enough right now to compete in the Western Conference, and they needed to make a deal. What the Celtics did do was they got Evan Fournier. And people can look at Evan Fournier and be like, oh, what is he? He hasn't won anything. But this is a legitimate nearly 20-point per game scorer who has been added to the mix for virtually nothing. The Celtics gave up Jeff Teague and a couple of second-round draft picks. The biggest problems that Boston has had in recent years has been the amount of talent that's gone out has not been as good as what's come in. Al Horford goes out, nothing comes back. Gordon Hayward comes out, nothing comes back. Now you have Evan Fournier coming in, and you don't give up anything. And Fournier suddenly becomes the third or fourth best player on that Celtics team, certainly the best offensive player on that Celtics team. So, Michael, I don't know. I look at the Celtics as having made a significant upgrade. I don't know if it puts them in the same class as Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, but I'm telling you right now, Evan Fournier helps that team immediately.
Yeah, I think that Fournier is a pretty legitimate addition here, especially for when you look at the Boston bench and their kind of rotation, the guys they were playing there outside of their starting five, it got really rough. Kemba Walker isn't a guy that necessarily can be counted on, I think, for a night in, night out offensive performance. Fournier has always been kind of underrated as an offensive scorer, as a secondary ball handler. And as you said, they basically got him for free. So, yeah, it's not necessarily the biggest move of the trade deadline season. But I do think that Fournier will make a legitimate addition. And I think that in round one and round two, he can make a real difference for Boston.
You need scores on that team. You need scores across the league. Fournier, at the very least, is going to be able to do that. For more, check us out over at SI.com.